Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the last week of the semester. Congratulations, you made it. Hopefully, you've learned a lot about world history. I read everyone's discussion posts, good summaries. It looked like that there were some people who just took this class for credit, which is totally fine, but then actually, like, hey, learn a little world history. So that's great. And I'm glad you did it. Discussion post kind of explained, how kind of a good idea of the world around us, and particularly kind of like how 151 stuff sort of lays the groundwork for, the contemporary world, which is true. So good. And I gave everyone I recorded myself, so you can link on that. I only had 30 seconds, so I sort of had to speed through it, but good job. It was good to read all of those. And then this week it's sort of the last. We're getting to 1500. We're getting up to that cusp there. The first lecture sort of reviewed up until kind of like the state of the world, and I've noted too, and I will update this later. But I'm sort of focused on Eurasia here because Africa, the Americas, and Oceania, those things were going on. Obviously, they really won't get engaged on a world historical scale until after 1500 with sort of European expansion. That's a 152 issue, but I should add it probably. I will in a later version of this course add it in there because things were going on there as well, but sort of in the context of one history 151 stuff. I mean, movements in Eurasia, sort of the kingdoms being built. If you look at the Song Dynasty in China, Heian period in Japan, early empires in early kingdoms in Europe, the Abbasid dynasty in the Middle East from 1000 to 1200. I mean, you have these kingdoms forming. The Mongols kind of unite all of that under the sort of Pax Mongolica. Connecting these, you can see that with Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta, two of these sort of world travelers. I gave some readings for those. Marco Polo's is sort of about his observations of China and how they sort of, which I think is really a good insight into how they sort of organize the transportation systems, trade systems of their kingdom. And then Ibn Battuta, I pulled out some observations of his about different major cities that he visited in his travels. So, kind of a good primary source materials, which hopefully you're a little more familiar with after taking this course too. What is a primary source? How can we read it? How can we analyze it, interpret it? So, so take a look at those. And then it all comes crashing down. We talked about the bubonic plague, that which I think now we can kind of understand the impacts of plagues after COVID. That it definitely disrupts transportation, disrupts local production. Fortunately, we had the advent of science and communication. We could say, hey, this thing's going on. Let's sort of, not like try to limit its spread. Whereas the Black Plague, people really didn't know where it was coming from. That's why you see the plague masks. People thought it was airborne, but it was really the fleas on the rodents. People lived with their animals, so it was just really easy to spread. There was sort of a minor little ice age there, so it was a little colder. So a lot of people were indoors. They're also saying, just read an interesting article that Europe had to import a lot more food because of this sort of change in weather. A lot of that black from the sort of the Black Sea, what modern day Ukraine, and with that food came rodents that sort of also spread this. But the cause and effect, the effect of the Black Plague globally, right? It caused the collapse of the Yuan Mongol dynasty in China, presumably where it started. We have records of them reporting plagues and disease a little bit before, a few, I think 20 years before it comes to Europe. And then in Europe, it really sort of ends this feudal world, right? A lot of cities are hit the hardest. So as Europe's recovering, a lot of people from the serfs that were originally tied to the land are moving to cities, getting more wages, more production, more needs for imports. And then that will fuel sort of this European expansion, started in Portugal and then emulated in Spain. Portuguese going to Asia, circumventing sort of the Middle East as it goes into the Indian Ocean, and then Spain saying, hey, or Columbus sailing for Spain saying, hey, I'll go west, we'll get to the same place, and then we'll have these spices that we can trade to make money on. And that's kind of the end. That's 1500 right there. So that's how it kind of ends up. So that's it. That's all the information. And now you just have a final exam. But don't think of it as a test. Think of it as like a way to show how much you've learned over the course of the semester. I have the review guide there. You have some review terms due by Friday. Just get those in. Kind of be thinking about that by Friday, and then, yeah, and then everything on the final is the same except the last section. There's a little bit longer essay. There'll be 3 questions. You just choose one of them. There'll be terms that you need to include in that essay. And with these terms, they don't have to be like try to incorporate them into the essay as an essay form. But you can add the historical context to those words, right? I mean, give a little bit. Don't just like plug them in, but it'll make sense as the prompts go. The key terms will put them in there, so they'll relate to the question that is being asked. So again, it's just kind of a more broad way of thinking. How can we think a little broader historically and put these sort of movements into perspective is all I'm really asking you to do. Yeah, and that's it. That's the final. Again, it's open note. You can use anything from this course in the course materials. Obviously, anything off the internet or like AI stuff. I mean, if I have a lot of these to grade. I will run the essays and the prompts through AI before I do, so get a sense of what they're putting out. I mean, if it is, I got a lot of these to do. If it's AI, I'm just gonna put a 0 and move on to the next final. I got like 5 classes to grade, so yeah. So just I want to know what you learned. So this is the time to tell me, what did you learn from this semester? And again, think back to last week's discussion post. Here's what I learned, and what are things you could say about it in the future. So that's it. Yeah, I think you guys will all do great. Yeah, I think that's everything. Have a good break.